Welcome, sleepy soul. Tonight I am your storyteller, your guide through shadows and whispers. Here in the dark corners of imagination, every creak, every shadow, and every whisper has a story to tell. Welcome to Creepytalks, where the night never ends and the tales are waiting for you. Story 1. The night before Christmas Eve had always been my favorite night of the year. Snow, lights, laughter, a feeling that the whole world paused, just for a moment, to breathe warmth into the cold. But the year I turned 17, Christmas Eve didn't feel magical. It felt wrong. It began with something so small I almost ignored it. The snow outside our cabin wasn't falling the way snow usually does. Instead of drifting lazily, soft and silent, it moved in sharp, sudden patterns, like gusts of wind were pushing it from the wrong direction, like the weather itself was confused or disturbed. My dad noticed it first. He stood by the window with a mug of cocoa, staring into the deep, dark woods that surrounded our cabin. "You ever see snow fall upward?" he asked, squinting. I laughed. "Snow doesn't fall upward." He didn't laugh back. For a moment, he just kept staring, eyes narrowed, focused, almost unsettled. Then he turned away, shaking his head. "Never mind. Must just be the wind." But even then, a small part of me felt it. This Christmas Eve was not normal. Something was coming, something none of us were ready for. The cabin we were spending the week at my grandparents' old winter cabin deep in the Colorado mountains. No neighbors, no cell service. The only road that led here was already half buried in snow. Inside, the cabin felt warm, safe, and full of that old Christmas charm. Wooden beams, a stone fireplace, cinnamon candles, decorations from the 1970s. It smelled like pine wood and hot chocolate. Mom hummed along to carols as she hung stockings. Dad chopped wood. My little sister Emily insisted on organizing the gifts by size, color, and her personal preference. Everything felt normal, almost forced, as if we were pretending the strange feeling outside didn't exist. The first sign, it was around 9:40 p.m. when I heard it. A knock on the front door. Not a loud one. Not frantic. Just a soft, slow knock. 3 taps. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. No one was supposed to be here. Not tonight. Not miles deep in the forest. My dad looked up from the fireplace. "Probably a branch in the wind," he said. He didn't sound convinced. Mom placed a hand on Emily's shoulder and gently moved her away from the door. "Let's not open it," she whispered, but the knock came again. Tap, 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 rhythmic, calm, patient, like whoever or whatever was on the other side knew we were listening. Dad grabbed the flashlight and moved toward the door cautiously. "Hello," he called out. "Anyone out there?" Silence. He opened the door, only an inch, just enough to see outside. Cold air rushed in, and along with it, the smell of wet earth, rotting pine, and something metallic. But there was no one, no footprints in the snow, nothing but the forest swallowing the night. Dad stepped outside for a moment, scanning the trees with the flashlight. "Tracks?" Mom asked from inside. "None," he said. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. He shut the door and locked it. "It's probably the cold messing with the wood," he said. But the knock wasn't wood expanding. It had been deliberate. The shadow at the edge of the woods. Around 10:15 p.m., I went to the kitchen to refill my cocoa. The window above the sink looked straight out into the forest. At first, I saw nothing but darkness and snow. Then something shifted. A shape, tall, thin, standing just at the edge of the tree line. At first, I thought it was a tree, but trees don't breathe, and whatever this was, I could see its breath rise in the air. Long, slow clouds of fog drifting upward. I blinked. The shape leaned forward. Just a little, like it was craning its neck to get a better look at the cabin. Then I saw it. Two faint, dull white glimmers. Not bright like eyes, more like the pale reflection of moonlight on bone. And they were pointed directly at me. I stumbled back, bumping into the counter hard enough to rattle the mugs. Mom rushed in. "What happened?" I pointed at the window, trembling. "There's something outside." She looked. Of course, by then, it was gone. Just a smooth, untouched blanket of snow and the dark stretch of woods. The thing in the snow. At 10:50 p.m., Dad went outside again to bring in more firewood. He was only gone for maybe 30 seconds when he banged on the door to be let back in. Mom opened it quickly. His face was pale. "You all need to come see this," he said quietly. We bundled up and stepped out into the freezing air. "What is it?" I whispered. Dad pointed to the ground. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. Snow, shadows, trees. Then it clicked. Footprints, but not human ones. Huge, nearly twice the size of Dad's boots. Deep, so deep the snow around them looked like something had been pressed down with enormous weight. And the shape, not a bear, not a wolf, not any animal I knew. It looked like an oversized human footprint, except the toes were too long, bent strangely. And there were 6 of them. 6 long, spidery, claw-like impressions pressed into the snow leading straight toward the cabin, stopping only inches from the front steps. Emily clung to Mom's side. "What made those?" Dad swallowed. "I don't know." He followed the trail with his flashlight. The prints didn't come from the woods. They led out of the woods, toward us. Then they stopped abruptly. No prints leading away. Nothing showing where it went next. It came to the cabin and then vanished. The scratching. We got back inside quickly. Dad barricaded the door with a heavy wooden chair. Mom drew the curtains on every window. Emily sat wrapped in a blanket, trembling. We tried to continue the night like normal. Movies, cocoa, carols, but the cabin no longer felt warm or safe. Around 11:20 p.m., as the fire crackled low and we all sat together in discomfort, it started. A soft sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. At first I thought it was coming from the roof, and then I realized it was on the wall, right behind me. Something was dragging its claws or fingers slowly across the outer cabin wall. Mom covered Emily's ears. Dad whispered, "Don't move." We all sat frozen. The scratching moved from one wall to the next, slowly circling the cabin, like something was walking around us, testing the walls, trying to find a way in. Dad mouthed the words, "It's going around the house." The scratching stopped. Silence swallowed the cabin. And then, a single knock on the window, exactly next to where Emily sat. She screamed. Dad ripped down the curtain and shone his flashlight out the window. But again, nothing was there. No figure, no footprints, no movement, just snow. Except the glass had a smear of something on it. Not dirt, not water, something brownish red, like a long, wide finger had been dragged across the window pane. The singing. It was nearing midnight. The fire was dying. The lantern batteries were low. The wind outside grew stronger, moaning through the trees. We sat in silence, too afraid to speak, too afraid to sleep. And then we heard it. Faint, far at first, a voice, singing. At least, it tried to sound like singing. A slow, broken tune, like someone who had heard music once but didn't understand it. The words weren't words, just drawn-out sounds that rose and fell in unnatural rhythms. A childlike melody, coming from the forest. Emily whispered, "Mom, it knows we're here." The singing grew louder, closer, clearer. Dad grabbed the axe he kept by the fireplace. "Everyone into the bedroom," he said. "Now." But before we moved, something tapped on the window. Not like before, not slow. This time it was eager, rapid, impatient. Tap, 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 tap. The singing stopped. Whoever or whatever was outside was now standing right at the window. Story 2. The thing that knew our names. The rapid tapping on the window froze all of us in place. Tap, 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 tap. Not random, not chaotic. It had a rhythm, almost like excitement. Dad raised the axe and stepped in front of us, shielding Emily and me. Mom grabbed my wrist, her grip so tight it hurt. The tapping suddenly stopped. Silence. A silence so complete that even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. Then, a voice, soft, whispering through the glass. Not singing this time, speaking, and it spoke my name. "Alex!" Drawn out, wet, wrong. Every hair on my body stood up. Emily whimpered. Mom held her closer. Dad's voice cracked. "Who's out there?" The answer came instantly. "Cold. So cold. Let me in." The voice was not human. Something about it felt copied, like a recording played backward, then forward again, stitched together by something that didn't fully understand language. I felt my knees weaken. This thing outside, it wasn't guessing my name. It knew me. But how? The shape at the window. Dad slowly reached toward the curtain, hesitant, terrified, but determined. "Don't," Mom whispered, but he pulled it aside anyway. Only a sliver, just enough to see, and that was enough. Something was standing inches from the glass, tall, thin, stretching upward like a crooked tree. Its skin, if it was skin, was pale and tight, stretched like old paper. Its face was long and narrow, with deep-set hollows where eyes should be. Except there were eyes, two, small, reflective, like something polished but dead. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They stared straight into the cabin, straight at us. The creature tilted its head, slowly, like it was studying us, learning us. Dad slammed the curtain shut and stepped back, panting. What the hell was that?" he whispered, but none of us had an answer. The tapping started again, this time harder, faster, desperate. Bam, bam, bam. Emily started crying. Mom tried to pull her into the bedroom, but the creature's voice whispered again, directly through the wall. "Emmy, light!" Emily screamed. It knew her too. It knew all of us. The power goes out at 12:14 a.m. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then everything went black. The tapping stopped. The voice stopped. The creature outside went silent. Dad lit a lantern and raised the axe again. "Everyone into the bedroom," he ordered. We hurried down the hallway, but halfway there, thud. Something heavy hit the roof. Not footsteps, more like a body slamming onto the shingles. Snow slid off in sheets. Another thud. Closer. Dad pushed us into the bedroom and shut the door. Then he dragged the dresser in front of it. The roof creaked, creaked again. Whatever was up there, it was crawling, slowly, deliberately, tracing our movements. The shadow of its long limbs passed over the skylight window. I covered my mouth to stop from screaming. Then it stopped right above our bedroom, directly above us, listening. The scratching returns. The creature began scratching the roof, long, deep strokes, claws dragging across wood. "Scratch, scratch, scratch," Dad whispered. It's trying to find a weak spot. Emily buried her face in Mom's chest. I pressed my back against the wall, staring upward, imagining the creature's thin fingers peeling open the roof like cardboard. The scratching stopped, only to reappear on the bedroom window, slow, deliberate. It was at eye level now. Only a thin layer of glass separated us. None of us moved. None of us breathed. Then, tap, a single finger tapping on the glass. Tap, again, soft, regular, like it was trying to get our attention. Dad slowly lifted the lantern toward the window. Mom begged, "Don't look." But we all did. We couldn't help it. And what we saw made my blood freeze. The smile. The creature's face was pressed against the window, so close the glass fogged from its breath. Its head was tilted sideways, as if it found us amusing. Those pale, reflective eyes stared into the room without blinking, and its mouth, it was smiling, but not like a human smile. The corners of its lips stretched too far, too thin, tearing the skin as it widened. Blood trickled down its chin, dripping onto the snow below. "Let me in," the creature whispered again. Its voice vibrated the window. Dad threw his body over us, shielding us. "No," he said. "No one move." The lantern flickered. The creature blinked slowly, almost curious. Then its long finger extended and scraped the glass. Just once, a long, slow drag. Then it stepped back and disappeared into the darkness. The footprints returned. Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 30. We didn't talk. We didn't move. Then we heard it, a soft crunching in the snow outside. Footsteps, but not human footsteps. The same heavy, deep, six-toed prints we had seen earlier. Circling the cabin, again, above, below, sides, back. It was examining the house, measuring it, testing it, looking for a way inside. Dad leaned close and whispered, "It's hunting us." Emily whimpered. Mom stroked her hair, whispering prayers. The footsteps stopped. Then we heard breathing, right outside the window. Slow, deep, too deep, like lungs too big for a human chest filling with air. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The breathing grew faster, more excited, more eager. Then, "Alex," it spoke again. My legs gave out. I collapsed to my knees. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The creature laughed softly, a broken, glitching sound, like a child trying to mimic joy, but not understanding how human laughter worked. "Open the door," Dad whispered. "Don't answer it. Don't even look at the window." The creature's laughter suddenly stopped, and the forest became quiet, too quiet. Then came the worst sound of the night. The door handle moves from the living room. Click. Someone, or something, was turning the front door handle. Slowly, gently, testing it. The chair Dad had placed against it creaked under pressure. Click. Again. Harder. Mom covered Emily's ears as she began sobbing uncontrollably. I clutched the floorboards, feeling every vibration as the creature pushed harder and harder against the door. The handle rattled, then shook violently. It wanted in. It wanted us. Dad whispered, "If it gets inside, we run for the back door. Don't look at it. Don't listen to it. Just run." But then, the handle stopped moving. Silence. A full minute passed. 2 minutes. 3. No movement. No sound. Nothing. Dad inched toward the bedroom window and lifted the curtain just 1 centimeter to peek outside. He froze solid. His expression drained of all color. His voice cracked. "Oh God, no," Mom whispered. "What? What is it?" Dad swallowed. "It's waiting." The creature was standing right at the front door, perfectly still, facing the house, its head angled toward the bedroom hallway. listening, waiting, like it knew exactly where we were. And then, very slowly, it lifted its long arm and pointed directly at the bedroom. At us, the thing that copied voices. Suddenly, the creature spoke again, but this time, it didn't use its own voice. It used my mother's. Alex, honey, unlock the door. My heart dropped. The voice was perfect, identical. Every tone, every warmth, every breath. Except the real mom was beside me, shaking her head violently. Don't listen, she whispered. Don't listen. The creature continued in her voice. It's okay. It's safe now. Come out. Dad grabbed my shoulders. That's not your mother. No matter what it says, don't move. Then the creature imitated Emily's voice. Alex, please, help me. Emily screamed. The creature giggled, a glitching, broken giggle. Then it used my voice. Let me in. I'm cold. Hearing my own voice calling from the other side of the door made my skin crawl. I whispered, Why is it doing this? Dad answered, It's trying to trick us. Emily asked through tears, But why? Dad's voice broke. Because it wants one of us to open the door. The face in the hallway. We all fell silent, waiting, listening. The creature went still again. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. Dad slowly peered into the dark hallway leading to the living room. Then he froze. His voice trembled. It's inside, Mom gasped. How? Dad's voice was barely audible. It found a way, through the attic or chimney. I felt my stomach twist. From the end of the hallway, something moved. A long, thin shape, gray, bony, silent. Its head slowly slid into view around the corner. Its eyes reflected the lantern light. It had gotten into the cabin. It was standing at the end of the hall, smiling. Story 3, when it got inside. The creature stood perfectly still at the far end of the hallway, half hidden in the shadows, half emerging into the lantern's flickering light. It didn't walk into view. It slid, slowly, quietly, its head leaning unnaturally far to one side, as if its neck had too many vertebrae. Its arms dangled past where its knees should have been. Too long, too thin, ending in fingers that nearly scraped the floor. Those reflective pale eyes stared at us without blinking. No expression, no emotion, just hunger. I froze where I stood. Mom gasped quietly. Emily let out a tiny whimper. Dad raised the axe, but his hands were trembling. The creature took one slow step into the hallway, its foot pressed into the wooden floorboards. Except it made no sound, not even the whisper of weight, but the boards bent under it, as if its presence was heavy, but its movement was silent. It tilted its head the other direction, so suddenly it made a crack sound, like bone shifting. Then it smiled again, that thin, tearing smile. The creature moves without warning. The creature moved. Not a run, not a sprint, not anything human. One moment it was at the end of the hallway. The next it was halfway down the hall. No footsteps, no noise. Just a blur, like reality had skipped a frame. Emily screamed. Mom covered her mouth instantly. Dad pulled us back farther into the bedroom, raising the axe and shaking hands. The creature stood motionless again, as if it only moved when we looked away or blinked. Then it lifted one long finger and pointed straight at me. Alex! The way it stretched my name, my knees nearly buckled. It took another step, even closer. The lantern light flickered again, and its shadow stretched across the walls like a spider made of darkness. Dad shouted, "Why, stay back." The creature paused, tilted its head, then using Dad's exact voice, perfect, identical, down to the breath, it said, It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Dad's grip tightened. That's not me, he whispered fiercely. The creature's smile widened, delighted with its imitation. Then it took another silent step toward us. We blocked the bedroom door. Dad pushed us deeper into the bedroom and slammed the door shut. He shoved the dresser, a nightstand, and even the mattress against the door. We pressed our backs into the far corner. Mom held Emily tight. I grabbed the lantern and clutched it like a shield. The house went silent. No breathing, no footsteps, no tapping. Just the faint crackle of the dying fire somewhere in the living room. Dad raised the axe, ready to swing if anything broke through. Then, a soft sound, barely audible. Slide. Something brushed against the bedroom door. Emily whispered, "It's right outside." We all held our breath. Then, slide, slide. It was dragging its fingers down the doorframe. Slow strokes. Then the sound stopped. For several seconds, we heard nothing. And then, something leaned against the door. Wood creaked. The dresser trembled. The creature whispered from the other side, "Let me in." It didn't imitate any voice this time. It used its own. Cold, wrong, so unnatural it made my spine feel like ice. Dad shouted, "Go away!" The creature giggled softly, like a child. Then, thump, something hit the door. "Thump, harder!" Emily cried out. Mom covered her ears, whispering fast prayers. The doorframe groaned. Another thump, so strong it cracked the top hinge. Dad gripped the axe tighter. "If it breaks through," he whispered, "get behind me. Don't run. Don't look at it." But before the creature could break through, it stopped. The pressure on the door vanished. Silence again. Too much silence. Dad leaned closer, trying to hear, and then something crawled up the wall, fast. So fast it sounded like a swarm of insects skittering across wood. Then the sound moved above us, on the ceiling, right over the bedroom. The creature was climbing. The thing in the attic. The ceiling above us creaked. Dust fell. Something moved directly overhead. Slow, deliberate, crawling the way a spider moves on its web. Dad pointed to the ceiling with the axe. "It's in the attic." Emily whimpered, "How did it get up there?" Dad didn't answer. None of us breathed. The thing dragged itself slowly, back and forth, as if choosing where to break through. Then it spoke, but not in our voices, not in any voice we recognized. This time it sounded like it was trying to speak through a throat too long and lungs too large. Hollow, echoing, ugly. "Soul, stice." The word made no sense. Mom whispered, "What did it say?" Then the creature repeated it, louder. "Soul, stice." It scraped its claws across the ceiling, circling the room. "Solstice," it whispered again. "Solstice." Dad's eyes widened. "Winter solstice," he whispered urgently. "Tonight isn't just Christmas Eve. It's the longest night of the year." The creature slammed its weight onto the ceiling, shaking dust loose. Then again, harder. The light flickered. The sound of cracking wood echoed. It was going to break through the ceiling. The attic hatch. The attic hatch was in the hallway, but the creature was above us now. It crawled to the spot right above the hatch. Boom! It slammed down. The door shuddered. Boom! Again. Emily screamed. Mom pulled her closer. Dad yelled, "Stay in the corner." The lantern flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. We heard the attic latch snap. Then, crash. The attic hatch burst open. Snow fell in from above. Boards splintered. Something long and pale dropped halfway down. Not its body. Not yet. Just its arm. Long, thin, almost rope-like. It dangled through the hatch, fingers twitching, searching, feeling the air, looking for us. I clamped my hand over my mouth. The fingers brushed the wall, then tapped lightly, as if trying to find something solid. Then its hand rotated unnaturally far, all the way around, and pointed toward our bedroom door. Then it withdrew, crawling back up with horrifying speed. The creature breaks in seconds later. Slam! It landed on the hallway floor outside the bedroom. We heard its joints crack as it unfolded itself, standing up, stretching tall, listening. The doorknob twisted slowly. Patience, persistence. Then it whispered my name again. Alex! The doorknob twisted harder. Wood splintered. Dad lifted the axe over his head. The creature slammed its body against the door. Crack! A crack split down the middle. It slammed again. Crack! The top panel burst open, revealing a long, pale arm sliding through, reaching, searching, clawing toward us. Emily shrieked. Mom pulled her into the corner. Dad swung the axe with everything he had and chopped the creature's arm. The blade sank halfway in, but instead of blood, something thick and black oozed out. The creature pulled its arm back. Not fast, not panicked. Slowly, quietly, as if it didn't feel pain at all. The arm retracted through the hole. Silence. Then, a whisper. Hurts. But not cried in pain. Said in surprise, like it had never experienced pain before and didn't understand what it was. The creature pressed its face to the broken gap in the door. One pale eye stared inside. Then, it roared, a sound that didn't belong to Earth. Deep, long, echoing like stone breaking underwater. The door frame split. The dresser slid. The mattress moved. Dad screamed, "Get behind me!" The creature slammed again. Boom! The door buckled. Boom! The hinges tore loose. Boom! The door exploded inward. Wood shattered. The dresser toppled. The mattress slid aside. And the creature stepped into the room. Tall, bent, smiling that impossible smile. The closest we've ever come to dying. Dad swung the axe first. The creature dodged effortlessly, bending backward at a sickening angle, spine cracking loud as thunder. It lunged at Dad, not fast, not in a leap. It simply appeared in front of him, like space folded, its long fingers wrapped around Dad's arm, so tight the bones creaked. Dad screamed. Mom tried to grab him. The creature swatted her away like nothing. She flew across the room, hitting the wall with a cry. Emily sobbed, clutching her blanket. I grabbed a broken chair leg and swung it at the creature's head. It didn't even turn to look at me. It caught the chair leg in one hand, snapped it in half, then leaned down until its face was inches from mine. Its breath was cold, rotten, wrong. Its voice was soft. Alex! It lifted one long finger and pressed it gently to my chest. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Its touch felt like needles of ice stabbing straight into my lungs. Then, a sound outside, a distant horn, a vehicle. Headlights flashed through the window. The creature's smile vanished instantly. Its head snapped toward the sound, like an animal caught in the open. For the first time that night, it retreated, backing into the hallway, then into the dark, then crawling up the wall. Gone. The sound of an approaching snowplow echoed through the forest. Dad gasped for breath. Mom crawled to Emily. Emily hugged her so tightly she sobbed into her shirt. I collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. The creature was gone, but not for good. The night wasn't over. The longest night of the year still had hours left. Story 4. The Thing That Crawled Down the Chimney. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The police left around 4 a.m. after filing a basic report. Possible intruder, property damage, animal traces, animal. That word kept echoing in my head. Because whatever had looked at me through the glass, whatever had whispered my name, whatever had left those elongated footprints in the snow, that thing wasn't an animal. And I knew in the deepest part of my bones, that it wasn't done with us. Christmas morning. When the sun finally rose, it didn't feel like Christmas. There were no songs, no laughter, no warm cocoa, only silence. I went downstairs and found my little sister Emma sitting by the tree staring at something in her hands. "Hey, you okay?" I whispered, sitting beside her. She nodded slowly. Then she handed me the object. It was an old wooden toy soldier, painted red and gold, the kind people used to hang on Christmas trees decades ago. Except this one looked hand-carved, and its face was wrong, very wrong. The eyes were too wide, carved into deep sockets. The smile stretched unnaturally far, and the paint around its mouth looked like it had been smeared on by a shaking hand. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my stomach tightening. Emma pointed toward the fireplace, and that's when I noticed it. Ash from the fireplace had been dragged outward, as if something had crawled out of it. The scratching mom and dad thought it was a raccoon. Of course they did. Every time something impossible happens, adults reach for the most boring explanation they can think of. But around 11 a.m., while my parents were cooking Christmas lunch, I heard it, scarch, 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 coming from inside the chimney, slow, deliberate, too heavy to be a bird or a raccoon. I froze. Emma grabbed my arm, eyes filling with tears. "It's the tall man," she whispered. My blood turned cold. "The what?" She swallowed hard. "I saw him last night, outside your window. He was smiling." My skin crawled. "You should have told me," I whispered. "I tried, but he told me not to." I stared at her. "What do you mean he told you not to? You heard him talk?" Emma nodded. "He said, 'Hush now, I only need one of you.'" I didn't realize I was shaking until Emma hugged me. The scratching grew louder. The hand that came down had stopped all at once. Silence. Emma and I slowly backed away from the fireplace. Then, thump. A heavy weight dropped inside the chimney, sending down a shower of soot. Then another thump, and another. Something was climbing down. Something big. I whispered, "Mom, Dad," but my voice cracked. They were in the kitchen, too far to hear, and that's when a hand appeared, long, bony fingers, the skin stretched thin, the nails black and chipped. It gripped the inner edge of the fireplace brick. Emma screamed. The hand snapped its fingers, a quick, sharp crack, like it was enjoying her fear. Soot rained down as the arm bent unnaturally, trying to pull the rest of the body through the narrow chimney. It moved wrong, too jointed, too flexible. Like a puppet someone was forcing through a space it was never meant to fit through. I grabbed Emma and pulled her back. The hand twitched, then gripped harder, testing the air, smelling us, hungry. The face in the fireplace. First the hand, then the wrist, then the elbow. Then, a face slid into view between the bricks. But it wasn't really a face. It was too smooth, too pale. Eyes carved into the flesh like someone had scratched them in with a sharp stick. And it was smiling, a wide, painted-on smile. Just like the wooden toy soldier, the creature tilted its head, bones cracking like snapping twigs. Then it said, in a voice like dry leaves whispering across a grave, "Found you." Emma sobbed into my chest. I stood frozen. The creature reached further, its fingers stretching toward us. But then, footsteps. My dad stepped into the living room. "What the hell?" The creature jerked back into the chimney with impossible speed, like a spider disappearing into a crack. A blast of soot exploded outward, Dad coughed and waved the air. "What was that?" I couldn't speak. Emma couldn't either. But the toy soldier was still lying on the floor, smiling, watching, waiting. Story 5. The Letters in the Snow. Dad didn't believe us. Of course he didn't. Even after he saw the soot explosion, the dragged-out ash marks, the toy soldier with its stretched smile, he still shook his head and said, "It's an animal. Maybe a raccoon fell through the chimney. That's all." But raccoons don't whisper your name. They don't leave human-shaped footprints in the snow. And they definitely don't carve unnatural faces into Christmas toys. I wanted to tell him all of that, to scream it, but my throat felt tight, like that thing was still holding it, like it wanted me to stay quiet. The snow outside the window. The rest of Christmas morning passed in a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. Every time I glanced at the fireplace, I imagined that pale, carved face pressed against the bricks, waiting for a moment to slide back down. Emma followed me everywhere. She refused to be even one room away. Mom noticed something was wrong, but Dad kept brushing it off. "Kids get scared. It's a stormy night, weird noises." "It's normal," he said, but I knew the truth. Storms don't make something crawl down the chimney. Around 3 p.m., I walked to my bedroom window to get some air. The snowfall had slowed. Huge, soft flakes drifted lazily, covering everything in smooth white. But something ruined the perfect surface. Footprints, not normal footprints. Long, deep, dragging. Like something with thin legs and too many joints had walked circles around our house. My heart dropped. Emma appeared at the doorway. "What is it?" I pointed. Her face went pale. But then she whispered, "Look, there." And I saw it, where the footprints ended near the back of the house. Letters, huge letters carved into the fresh snow. A message. A message written not with hands, but with clawed feet dragging across the ground. I leaned closer to the window. Snow blew across it, but the words were still visible. "Hello, children." My breath fogged up the glass. Emma grabbed my wrist so hard her nails dug in. "Hey, he knows we're here," she whispered. "Emma," I said. "He already knew." The Christmas card. When we went downstairs again, something new was sitting on the living room table. A small envelope, white, thin, speckled with snowflakes. Nobody in the family had brought in the mail yet. Nobody had opened the door since morning. My stomach twisted. The handwriting on the envelope was elegant, old-fashioned, black ink, slightly smudged. It simply said, "To the children." Mom saw us staring at it. "Who brought that in?" she asked. Dad shook his head. "Not me," Emma whispered. "Don't open it." Dad sighed. "It's a Christmas card, probably from a neighbor." But when he picked it up, he frowned. Cold, really cold, like it's been outside for hours. He tore the envelope. My heart hammered. Dad pulled out a thin yellowed card. The front showed an old Victorian house with snow, but the drawing looked off. The windows were too dark, the shadows too deep, and in the corner, almost hidden, a tall figure stood near the chimney. Long arms, thin legs, smiling painted face. Dad squinted. "Weird art." He flipped it open. There was a short message inside, written in the same black ink. "I see you. I hear you. I know which one of you is afraid." Dad swallowed. "What kind of joke is this?" But there was more. At the bottom corner of the message, a smear of soot, fresh, wet, as if a sooty finger had dragged across the paper only moments before. Emma backed up toward me. "It's him," she whispered. "It's the tall man." The sounds in the walls. That evening, the house felt colder, even with the heater on full, even with blankets, even with Christmas lights glowing warm around the tree. It was the kind of cold that sinks into the bones, the kind that belongs to winter cemeteries and empty roads. At 6 p.m. it started, a faint crackling noise, almost like someone tapping the wall with long fingernails. Then, "Scourge, scourge, scourge!" Mom looked up. "Is that a mouse?" Dad pressed his ear to the wall. "That's not a mouse." The scratching moved, inside the wall, traveling fast, going up, then sideways, then down, as if something thin was crawling between the studs and wood beams. Emma hugged me tight. "Why is he inside?" she whispered. I didn't know how to answer. The scratching stopped right behind the fireplace. Then, thump, Emma whimpered. I clamped a hand over her mouth before she could scream. Mom looked at Dad. "I'm calling someone. An inspector. Animal control. Someone." Dad nodded, but deep inside I knew. No inspector could fix this. The knock on the attic door. Around 9 p.m., the house grew quiet. The heater hummed softly. The tree lights twinkled gently. Dad double-locked all doors. Mom checked every window. Emma sat close to me under a blanket. I pretended to watch TV with her. I wasn't watching. Neither was she. Every few minutes, one of us glanced at the fireplace. At 9:40 p.m., we heard it. A single knock. Not on the front door, not on the walls, on the attic door, the door that led to the crawl space above our bedrooms. Knock. Dad stood up. "It's probably the wood shifting." Then another knock, harder. Knock. This time 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Emma whispered through tears, "He's asking to come in." What I saw in the hallway, Dad grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the hallway. Mom followed behind him. "Stay here," she told us. But I couldn't sit still. I followed quietly, staying a few steps back. The attic door sat at the end of the hallway. Old white paint peeling, the string dangling to pull it open. Dad shined the flashlight at it. "See? Nothing. It's fine." But then, the string moved. Not gently, not randomly. It swung back and forth like someone had flicked it. Dad froze. Mom whispered, "Please tell me you saw that." Dad swallowed. "There must be a draft." "There's no draft, Andrew," Mom said. And then, the entire attic door bulged outward, as if something pressed its weight against it from the other side. I felt cold wash over my skin. Emma, who had quietly followed behind me, grabbed my hand. Then the thing pressed again. Once, twice, 3 times. Each push stronger, each push heavier. Then a whisper seeped through the ceiling. "Let me down." Dad shouted, "Go to your room, now!" He grabbed the attic door handle and held it, as if stopping it from being forced open. I ran with Emma back to our room, but the house didn't feel safe. Not anymore. Not at all. The thing wasn't outside anymore. It wasn't looking through windows. It wasn't coming down the chimney. Now, it was inside our walls. It was above our ceiling. It was in our home. And it wanted something. One of us. Story 6. The night the attic door opened by itself. Dad held the attic door shut long enough for Emma and me to run into our room, but the sound that followed still echoes in my skull. Thump, thump, thump. Something heavy moved across the beams above us. Not walking, dragging. Mom's voice trembled from the hall. "Andrew, get away from there." Dad didn't answer. Then, "It's pushing from the inside," he whispered. I heard it. We all did. A slow, rhythmic pressure against the wooden door. The hinges whining. Dust falling from the ceiling. Whatever the tall man was, it didn't knock anymore. It wanted in. The crack through the ceiling, Emma crawled under my bed, shivering so hard the mattress vibrated. I knelt beside her. "It's okay, he can't come in here," I whispered. But even I didn't believe it, because above us, directly above our room, The attic floor creaked and bowed, slowly. Then, crack! A thin split tore across our ceiling plaster. Not a random crack, not from age. It followed a path, a deliberate, curving, almost playful path. Like someone was dragging a fingernail across the ceiling, tracing a message only we could hear. Emma covered her ears, but the sound grew louder. Scraping, dragging, laughing. Yes, laughing. A dry, breathy chuckle rolled through the beams. I felt sick. Dad's voice. Suddenly, Dad yelled from the hall, "Kids, come out, right now!" Emma and I scrambled to the door, but before we reached it, the attic boomed. The entire house shook. Mom screamed. Dad shouted something I couldn't hear. Emma froze. "We shouldn't go out there." But then Dad shouted again, voice cracking. "Come now!" I grabbed Emma's arm and threw open the door. The hallway lights flickered violently. Dust floated everywhere. Mom stood near the front of the house, gripping a baseball bat, her hands shaking, eyes wide with terror. Dad was still holding the attic door handle, or trying to. Whatever was pushing from the inside was stronger now, much stronger. The wood bowed. The hinges moaned. A thin line of dark soot poured from the edges of the attic door, drifting down like ash. Emma whispered, "He's coming." The night Christmas went dark, Dad yelled to Mom, "Get the kids to the car, now!" Mom didn't argue. She grabbed Emma's hand, but as soon as she pulled her, the lights snapped off. The whole house dropped into pitch darkness, a deep, suffocating black. And through the darkness, we heard the attic door creak open, just a few inches, enough for something to breathe. A slow inhale, a slower exhale. Emma started sobbing. Dad fumbled for his phone flashlight. The moment he turned it on, the beam showed the attic door hanging open, blackness behind it, and a shape, tall, thin, bent too low to fit. Its hand gripped the edge of the opening, the same hand we saw in the fireplace. Long fingers, chipped nails, skin stretched like wax. Dad stepped backward, shielding us. "What do you want?" he yelled. The thing tilted its head. Then it whispered, "One scared child." Emma clutched me, trembling. Dad stepped forward. "You're not taking anyone." The creature moved, not fast, not slow, just wrong, like joints bending backwards in smooth, unnatural arcs. It extended its head down, stretching, its carved smile widening until cracks appeared in the skin. Then it whispered, "I choose her." Its finger pointed past Dad, past me, directly at Emma. She screamed and fell backward into me. Dad lunged at the creature, but he passed right through it. The tall man dissolved into soot, a cloud of black dust that swirled around us, choking, freezing. Then, boom! It vanished up the chimney, leaving only the smell of burnt wood. The lights snapped back on. The house went silent. Too silent. The tall man's real target. Dad grabbed Emma, lifting her into his arms. "We're leaving. Right now." None of us argued. We piled into the car in seconds. But before Dad started the engine, Emma whispered, "He's not gone." Her eyes were wide, empty, staring straight ahead. Mom stroked her hair. "Sweetheart, it's okay." Emma shook her head. "No, he said it. I heard him whisper to me when the lights went out." My stomach twisted. "What did he say?" Emma swallowed hard, her voice barely a breath. "He said, 'You open the window for me.'" I froze, because she did. Last night, when she couldn't sleep, when she wanted fresh air, when she said she thought she heard carolers, she opened the window. She let him in. She didn't know it. But he chose her from that moment, and he wasn't done. Not even close. Story 7. The mark he left on Emma. Dad drove like the world was ending. Snow blasted across the road. The tires slipped. The wipers squealed. But no one spoke. Not me. Not Mom. Not Emma. Especially not Emma. She sat silently in the back seat beside me. Knees pulled to her chest, face pale, eyes fixed straight ahead like she was watching something only she could see. Every time the headlights lit up a tree or a mailbox, she flinched. Finally, Mom turned in the front seat. "Sweetheart," she whispered gently, "he's not here. You're safe." Emma didn't blink. She whispered back, "No, he's in the car." Mom froze. Dad's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. I turned slowly toward Emma. "Where?" I whispered. Her eyes drifted upward, to the roof of the car. My heart stopped. "Emma, what do you mean?" But she cut me off, voice empty. "He's crawling." A soft thump echoed above us. Snow dust fell across the rear windshield. The roof dented slightly. Mom gasped. Dad swore and sped up, the car swerving. Something was on top of the car. The shadow on the road. The wipers fought the snowfall, barely clearing the glass. Dad kept glancing at the rear mirror. "Is he still up there?" Mom whispered. "Andrew, don't stop. Just keep driving." But then, a shape appeared on the side of the road. For a second, I thought it was a leafless tree. Tall, thin, still. But the head turned when we passed. Its neck snapped in a sharp, unnatural arc. Emma squeezed my arm. "He's not staying on the car," she whispered. "He's following us." Something scraped across the roof. A long, slow drag. Then another thump. And then the shadowy shape on the roadside stepped into the glow of our headlights. I saw it clearly. The same carved face, the same wide wooden smile, the same long limbs. A puppet with no strings. Its eyes glistened like wet coal. It stared at us as Dad's car sped past, its head swiveling all the way around to keep watching. Then it crouched and leapt. The impossible leap. "Andrew!" Mom screamed. Dad slammed the brakes. Too late. Something landed hard on the trunk. The entire car jolted. The roof dented inward. A handprint pressing through the metal from above. A long, pale finger poked through the ceiling fabric. Emma sobbed silently. Dad yelled, "Get down!" He floored the gas. The engine roared. Snow sprayed everywhere. But the creature held tight. The car fishtailed across the ice, skidding violently. I felt the vehicle losing control. We were going to crash. We were going to flip. Then, a loud metallic crack. The windshield splintered down the middle. A long black nail pierced through the glass. It traced a slow, deliberate line. A smile, a carved smile. The same twisted grin as the wooden toy soldier. Emma whispered, "He's drawing his face." The scream that wasn't human. Dad jerked the wheel hard. The car spun. For a moment, all I saw was white. Snow, headlights, spinning blur. Then, scrah! A scream tore through the night. A screech like metal ripping, like bones snapping underwater, like someone laughing and dying at the same time. The weight on the roof lifted. Something flew off into the trees. A pale blur disappearing into the darkness. The car slid sideways until... Crash! We slammed into a snowbank. Everything went still. Only the engine ticking. Only our breathing. Finally, Mom whispered, "Is everyone okay?" Dad panted, I don't see him." Emma didn't move. I shook her gently. Emma, say something." She slowly turned her head toward me. Her eyes weren't her eyes anymore. They were darker. Like someone had smeared soot across the whites. Like something was watching through them. Then she whispered, "He said I can't leave." My blood froze. "Emma, who said?" But she only blinked once. A slow, puppet-like blink. then lifted her hand. The sleeve of her jacket fell back, and I saw it, a mark on her wrist. Thin, black, carved into her skin like burned wood. Dad grabbed her arm. "Oh my God, Mary, look!" Mom gasped, covering her mouth. It wasn't a bruise. It wasn't dirt. It was a symbol, a circle, a line. 3 claw marks. I had seen it before. In the snow, in the ash, on the old Christmas card. The tall man's mark. His claim. Emma whispered, voice hollow. "He marked me so he can find me in the dark." Mom cried. Dad held her. I held Emma. But she didn't look at any of us. She kept staring out the window, into the forest, where something tall moved between the trees, waiting, watching, smiling. Story 8. The night we hid in the motel. The snowbank saved our lives. If the car had slid even a few more feet, we would have gone off the embankment and crashed into the frozen river below. But survival didn't feel like safety. Not when Emma kept whispering to the empty darkness, "I hear him." Not when her eyes drifted every few seconds toward the tree line as if someone out there was calling her name. Dad climbed out first, checking the damage. The trunk was crushed, the roof dented inward, the windshield cracked straight down the center, a smiling curve spreading from top to bottom. Mom whispered, "We can't stay out here. We need a place to hide, somewhere with lights, other people." A sane thought, but there were no sane choices left. Dad pointed down the road. "There's an old motel about a mile up. The Snowdrop Inn. It stays open through Christmas. We'll make it there." I remembered the Snowdrop Inn. Tiny, lonely, old. Just a few yellow lights in the endless white. But it was better than the forest behind us, where trees creaked like bones and shadows shifted too tall. We started walking, Emma between us, but the whole way she kept turning her head, as if listening for footsteps only she could hear. The motel lobby, the Snowdrop Inn, was exactly how I remembered. A flickering neon sign, a sagging roof, a bell on the counter that probably hadn't been cleaned in 10 years, and a lobby that smelled like old peppermint and mildew. An old man sat behind the counter, thin, gray, eyes tired but kind. When he saw our panicked faces, he stood immediately. "Car trouble?" Dad hesitated. "Yeah, something like that." The man eyed the broken windshield. "That wasn't from the snow, son." Mom stepped forward, gripping Emma's shoulder. "We just need rooms." The old man nodded slowly. "How many?" "2, Dad said. "3, I whispered before I could think. They all looked at me. I didn't want to explain that the space behind doors, under beds, and inside closets terrified me, that anywhere with shadows felt like an invitation for the tall man. But the old man nodded like he understood more than he should. 3 keys, then. He handed them over. But before Dad could turn away, the man leaned forward. "Keep your curtains closed tonight." Dad froze. "Why?" The old man glanced at Emma. "Some things watch through windows." My breath caught. He knew something. But Mom grabbed the keys and tugged Emma along. We hurried down the hall. But as we turned the corner, the lobby lights flickered. The old man's voice drifted after us. "And if you hear knocking, don't open any door." The scratch on the curtain. Our rooms were side by side. Dad put Emma and Mom in one. He put me next door. He said being close meant we could move fast if anything happened. But being separated from Emma, even by a wall, filled me with dread, because she wasn't acting like Emma anymore. When Mom guided her inside, Emma dragged her feet like she didn't want to go, like something else wanted her elsewhere. I lay on the motel bed staring at the ceiling, listening. At first, just the hum of the heater. Then, from next door, "Scritch, scritch, scritch." something dragging across their curtain. My stomach clenched. Then I heard Mom's muffled voice. "Emma, sweetheart, don't stand so close to the window." A pause, then Emma whispered, "He's asking me to open it." I sat up instantly. A cold wave washed over me. Then, a single knock on my window. Not from outside, from the glass. Slow, soft, patient. I froze. Another knock. Then a voice. A whisper of dry leaves. "Wrong window. You're not the one." I couldn't breathe. The shadow behind my curtain slowly receded and moved toward their room. What Emma said through the wall? 2 minutes later, I heard Mom shout, "No, get away from the window." Something hit the glass from outside. Hard. The entire wall rattled. Dad's voice yelled from the hallway, "Mary, open the door." I burst out of my room. Dad shoved past me, opening their door with his key. Mom was holding Emma back from the window. Emma was reaching toward it with both hands. Both hands. And that's when I saw the mark on her wrist was glowing faintly. A dim, ember-like red. Like something was calling to it. Like it was answering. Dad slammed the curtain shut and locked the window latch. But the glass was covered with something. Finger streaks. Long, vertical streaks. As if someone had dragged their nails down the entire outside surface. Mom was crying. Dad held her. Emma just stared at the curtain. Then she whispered, "He says he doesn't need the window if I let him in myself." I felt sick. "What does that mean, Emma?" I asked. She slowly lifted her sleeve. Another mark, not the circle with lines. A new symbol, burned deep into her forearm. A spiral, a door, and inside it, a face. His face, the tall man's. Emma blinked once and whispered in a voice that wasn't fully hers. "He asked me to open the door." Inside my mind. Mom collapsed. Dad grabbed Emma by the shoulders. "Emma, look at me." But she didn't look at him. Her eyes drifted to the motel ceiling, and she whispered, "He's already inside." The attic of the motel, a loud creak echoed above us. All of us looked up at the same time. The ceiling bulged. Dust rained down. Something moved across the attic floorboards overhead. Slow, deliberate, like long limbs crawling. Then, a whisper crawled down the walls. "Found you." Emma smiled faintly, a small, eerie smile. Not hers, not human. Dad grabbed us. "We're leaving. Now." But before we could reach the door, before Dad could turn the handle, 3 knocks, soft, polite, on the inside of the door, coming from the hallway side. Dad stepped back. Emma whispered, "That's not him." We all stared at her. She shook her head. "He doesn't knock to come in. He knocks to make you listen." Mom whispered, "Then, who is that?" Emma looked at the door. Her eyes widened. Then she said, trembling, "It's the first child he ever took." The knocking grew louder, and the tall man crawled deeper into the motel attic above us, waiting for one door to open, just one. Story 9, The Thing That Followed Me Home. I didn't remember running. I didn't remember leaving the forest. I didn't even remember crossing the frozen creek. All I remembered was the screaming. Not mine, not human, but something born from winter itself. By the time my senses returned, I was standing in front of my house, breath heaving, legs shaking, snow soaked into my jeans. The Christmas lights my dad had put up were flickering, unstable, buzzing, almost like they were reacting to something in the air. Then I felt it, a presence behind me, slow, cold, impatient. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I pushed open the front door and slammed it shut behind me, locking every bolt with trembling fingers. My mom poked her head out of the kitchen. "Sweetheart, you're pale. Did something happen? I tried to speak, but the words were stuck in my throat. All I could do was whisper, "Don't open the door. Whatever happens, don't open it." She stared at me like I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But then, thump. A single hit on the front door made the whole hallway shake. My mom's smile slowly faded. We both froze. Another thump, then another. Rhythmic, like something testing the wood. My dad came running from the living room. "What the hell is going on?" he barked, but even he sounded scared. We waited. Silence. Then, a voice. Small, childlike, weak. "Help, please. I'm cold. Let me in." A child voice. My dad rushed toward the door, but I grabbed his arm so hard he actually winced. "That's not a kid," I whispered. "Don't open it. Dad, please." He frowned. "Then what is it?" I shook my head. Outside, the voice continued. "I'm freezing. My fingers hurt. Let me inside. Please." But there was something wrong. The tone was right. The pitch was right. But the pauses, they were too perfect, too evenly timed, like it wasn't speaking. More like playing a recording. Then the voice changed. Same pitch, same tone. But this time, it was my voice. "Mom, Dad, I'm outside. Please open the door. Please." My mom gasped. My dad stepped back. Something scratched the door. Long, slow, dragging claws. My own voice continued. "It's me. It's cold. Let me in." I whispered, "It's copying me." My dad whispered back, "What did you see out there?" Before I could answer, the door handle began to turn, slowly, smoothly, almost politely. My dad lunged forward and gripped it to hold it in place. But then the handle jerked violently, like something was pulling from the other side. My dad strained, veins popping out of his arms. "It's strong," he grunted. I didn't think. I just ran to help him. My mom started dialing emergency services, but before she could press call, boom, the front door bowed inward, like something huge had slammed against it. Then again, and again. With each impact, dust fell from the ceiling. My dad grabbed the hall table, wedged it under the handle, and braced his back against it. "Go to the basement," he yelled, "now!" But the moment he said it, something made me freeze. A shadow passed across the frosted window beside the door. A head, antler-like shapes. Too tall, too thin, too wrong. And worst of all, its face was pressed against the glass, watching us. My mom screamed. My dad yelled for us to run. I couldn't move. I swear on everything. Its face looked like mine, like me, stretched into something monstrous. A mockery, a twisted winter puppet wearing my shape. It tilted its head and smiled, a long, frozen, lifeless smile. Then it whispered, with my own exact voice, "I see you." The lights flickered. The house hummed. The thing outside tapped its long fingers on the window like it was impatient. Tap, tap, tap. Then it leaned closer. "Let me in." My mom pulled me back. My dad shouted to get downstairs. But then the tapping stopped. The presence vanished. Silence. For a full 30 seconds, we didn't breathe. It was gone, or so we thought. Then, from the back door, knock, knock, knock. 3 soft taps, then my voice again, soft, polite. "Let me in from this side. You forgot to lock it." My mom's face went white because she suddenly remembered. She had forgotten. The back door was unlocked. To be continue.